Hey everybody, welcome back to part 7 of the Avocado in Color Pencil. This is a color pencil study in texture. I'm Joanna Hill. If you haven't caught the first few episodes, there are 6 other episodes to this drawing where you can also draw along with me. They are on my channel under the Live tab. You can also go to my website to download the free reference photo and the line drawing. It is jhillfineart.com/tutorials, and you'll find all the downloads there available, and you'll also see a list of all the products that I'm currently using for this project. So anyways, today we are going to focus on maybe trying to finish this. I won't be streaming next week. I will be out of town, but I'm going to try and get as much done on this as possible. We've taken quite a few weeks to work on this project, and I'm ready to start a new one. So I'm starting to be ready to finish this. So anyways, last week we worked a lot on the upper half of the avocado, and we also introduced some of the color pencil titanium touch-up texture from Brush and Pencil, and I sort of had a little mistake, which is why I used it before. So this is now dry. It's been on there for, since last week, and I haven't touched it yet. So we're going to color over that, try and fix that particular section. And then I'll continue to work on the upper half here, and I'm going to start working on the background today as well. So if you have questions, feel free to ask me anything. Leave it in the comments, and I'll get back to you with an answer the best I can. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. So we'll go ahead and focus right here. And I'm gonna zoom my camera in so you can see what we are doing. Okay. So I needed the values to be higher than what I had them. I overfilled the tooth of the paper, and I didn't get a high enough value for what I needed. So according to my reference photo, I need more of a very light yellow ochre color. That's also sort of more orangey tone as well. So I'm going to start off by giving these little white patches a glaze with this is a dark cadmium yellow from, what is this? Polychromos, Faber-Castell Polychromos. A lot of the yellows and the oranges are pretty translucent. So this is just going to essentially tint these little white specks. And that's going to get me pretty close to where I needed to be to begin with. I am trying to stay in the little sections that I had painted on because I don't want to pick up any of the color pencil surrounding that and making it a little bit muddy. Now, if you were here last time, you can see what I had described, that you still see the outside edges of where you paint. I don't particularly care for that effect, which is another reason that I don't really use this product often, but it does help in a pinch. So we've got the value, we've got the tone that I'm looking for. Now I just need to start blending in some of those little outside edges into the surrounding section here. And it's possible that we might not be able to achieve a photorealistic representation for this particular spot, but hey, lesson learned. Sometimes it just doesn't work out the way we intend it to be. I have to forewarn you, I am quite tired today. Took a nap. I'm just so sleepy. I was up at about 4 o'clock this morning. My husband had to get up for work pretty early, and I woke up with him and decided to go get a workout in early. and it just kicked my butt and I haven't quite recovered. Okay, so I'm going in with some sepia. This is from the Derwent Drawing line of pencils. This is a wax-based pencil. And I'm just adding in some of the small textured pieces. There's like little tiny holes. Don't want to overdo it because I don't want to lose the contrast that I had to put back in. I think that looks okay. I think it needs a little bit more orange. This is a deeper orange. This is a cadmium orange. And I'm just putting it in areas where I see more of that orangey glow. And then I see a little bit of red right in here. Okay. I also see a little bit of some graying. I think tomorrow I am going to sleep in. Actually, I think that looks okay. I'm gonna leave it alone and I'll zoom back out. Okay, I think that looks all right. So let's go back and let's start finishing or bringing this more to a finished state. You might be tempted, if you're at this point, to actually call the avocados finished, but you could spend, or I could spend, a lot more hours just trying to find areas to continue to render and make it more realistic, more lifelike, just by going around small section at a time. And that is something that you do want to get in the habit of doing, is not calling your artwork done too soon. I'm going to turn this a little bit. If you get in the habit of just taking your time and slowing down, your artwork will become a lot more pleasing and a lot better, because you'll start to see things that you didn't see before, and you can fix those or just continue to work them. But yes, continue to work and trust the process. I'm using a light gray for this section, trying to capture more of the reflected light coming off of that upper side, which is being reflected from the plate and probably whatever else is back there. Now it's showing up a little too gray in some of these darker areas, so I'm going to go over it with a little bit of green, just to give that gray a little bit of color. Now up in here is a little too green, I think. It's a little bit more cooler, a little bit more grayer. So I'm just going to go over some of these areas where I've highlighted already and just add some gray tones. And that's going to de-intensify a lot of this green that I have. There's also some darks that I see that I'm also missing, so I'm gonna, since I'm in the area, I'm gonna grab a darker green. This one is pine green. Doesn't matter which green. Just as long as it's dark and the value that you're looking for. And I don't think that's quite dark enough. So we'll try this chromium oxide green. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I like that. So aside from being tired most of the day, I did have a very productive morning. When I got home, I did my usual morning routine, and then I worked on my preparing some canvas boards for my next Sip and Paint, which is coming up on September 10th in Greenville, Georgia. If you are in that area, me and my friend Janet are doing a Sip and Paint event starting from 1 o'clock until 4, and you can find information about that on my website where you can purchase tickets. So I got all that prepped and ready to go today, which was a huge weight off my plate because that is kind of tedious. I trace out all of my boards just to make it a little bit more approachable for beginning artists, which if you've been to a Sip and Paint, most people that go to those are beginning artists or have never been to one. They're there just for the entertainment factor. So I try to make it as easy as I can and also enjoyable, so I don't require my participants to draw. So I draw ahead of time, and then I trace the design onto the canvases. I figured since I'm going out of town this weekend, I need to get as much work as I can done since I'm going to be gone for a little bit. I'm going to go travel to see my sister and her family. I'm very excited. And they live up in the Virginia Beach area, which is where I'm originally from. And I think I might try and see some other family members since I'll be up in that area too. But the reason I'm going up there is I had drawn a design or a picture for my sister's husband, and we are going to be I made prints of it, and so we're going to try and sell some of those prints. All right, I'm just going to go over this section and just give it another coat of green. I still see a lot of graininess, which means that I don't have enough pencil laid down. So if you have that issue where you've blended out, you know you've done a bunch of layers, but you're still getting graininess, it's just not done. Keep layering. Color pencil just takes a very long time to do, especially when you have all this little tiny texture and detail. So So we've been doing this for, we've had 6 episodes and roughly 1.5 hours a piece. So we've got probably a little over 10 hours worth of work into this already. Typically when I'm working on a color pencil piece, depending on how detailed it is or how detailed I want it to be, I mean, you could easily work on it for, 30 hours. Or, I've worked on large pieces that have taken, about 100 hours before. And I don't think I could do a live stream with something that ambitious. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here for a long time. But it's the same process. It's just taking more time, continuing to layer, continuing to adjust colors. So nothing really changes. It's just the time frame. I see a lot of little brown flecks in here. So I'm going to start maybe kind of adding a little bit of those small details here and there. Make sure my camera's focused. So I'm trying to decide what kind of a project I want to do for my next live stream. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like to learn, leave a comment below. I don't think it'll be another color pencil piece. I think I might either move to an oil painting or maybe a gouache painting. I had some fun last night. If you follow me on Instagram, which is at jhillfineart, I have been studying or learning about Kandinsky, and he's one of my favorite classic artists. I think his work was like really 1900s to 1920s or so, and he's basically non-objective abstract. Started with Impressionism, and then, as his art career progressed, he got more and more abstract and moved away from any sort of subject matter, really, or if there was, you can't really tell what it is in the painting, so that's why it's more non-objective, less abstract. So I'm going to kind of rant about that. Abstract versus non-objective. I hear a lot of artists sort of use both of those terms interchangeably for different artworks. To my understanding is that if you have an abstract piece, we all seem to, when you hear abstract, you think of Picasso, where it's just shapes and, weird things, shapes, colors, just splashes. If you can tell what it is, like a Picasso, sometimes he has those weird faces, but the ears are like, on the side, and the eyes are like on top, and it's just all distorted. That is technically abstract. You can still see what it is of. It has a subject, but it's just abstract. Now, non-objective would be an artwork that's just shapes, designs, with no subject. You can't tell what it's of. So it would technically be called non-objective. So that's just one of my little pet peeves, because I hear a lot of people talk about abstract art or calling a non-objective artwork abstract, and I guess there's really no harm in it, but I don't know. It was the way I was taught. But anyways, so back to Kandinsky. He was a Russian painter, did several different mediums, and was, kind of grouped in with the Impressionists like, Monet, Matisse, that era. But anyways, I came across, I was cruising Facebook the other day, and of course you get those like advertisements for different groups, and Facebook always tries to get me to join all these, random art groups and stuff that just share pictures. Well, one of them was it was a photograph of a book that Kandinsky had written, and in this book were some of his drawings. And I didn't really know much about Kandinsky, and I also didn't really know that he did drawings. I just saw that he had, a lot of paintings that I really liked. And I wish I could show you the photographs, but look it up, Kandinsky. They're drawings of dancers, but they're simplified into lines and circles and curves and things like that, and it's just really cool. I really enjoyed kind of looking at those, so I decided that I would try my hand at simplifying some everyday shapes or everyday objects into that sort of style. And it was kind of fun. It was a little bit freeing because I'm so used to capturing things accurately that I don't allow myself to just kind of let go and play, even if it is going to look awful, which my first attempt I think kind of did look awful. But I was trying something new, and I don't typically do non-objective work or abstract work. And anyways, I actually really liked it. I drew my dog in my interpretation if she were to be a Kandinsky painting or drawing. And I broke out my watercolors and some gouache paint and painted, some shapes and washes, and did some line work with my pens. And it was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed it, and I recommend you giving it a try as well, because it was, I feel like I kind of learned something. I don't know what I learned, but I feel like I learned something. I definitely felt a little bit more motivated to try something new. I have a whole bunch of these canvases that they're not canvas, they're what do you call them, birch panels, and I need to finish priming them. I've sealed them because they were just raw wood. I sealed them, and now I have to put the ground on, which I just haven't done yet, and that has to cure for like a week or two. So maybe I'll try doing some non-objective paintings and kind of play around with color palettes as well. That could be fun. I think this area right up here needs a lot more of a blue tone. Not a lot, but just a little bit, and more white. So after I got most of my work done for the day, I finished watching this movie called Moonfall. I think it was on either Netflix or Amazon Prime. That was the dumbest movie ever. I don't know. It was like one of those end of the world kind of movies, which I kind of enjoy, but they are pretty hokey. And this one was just like, it was so stupid. I don't even know how to explain it. Full of plot holes, full of just unbelievable events. I'm not going to put a lot of blue in here, just a little bit. All right, this is all starting to look a little cartoony, but that's okay. We're just going to keep working it, trust the process. This is where it gets really tedious. Just rebalancing everything as you go along. Then after that, I took a pretty good nap. That was nice. I don't usually take naps. I always feel like they're a waste of my time, but sometimes they are necessary. Sometimes. All right, so I'm just going to kind of speckle in some of these highlights over on this side. And I'm putting them in the areas where there is a light value. I don't want to put them in an area where it's dark, just so I can continue with that sort of the raised up texture. And you don't want to overdo it. And some of these even have more of a geometric shape as well. So pay attention to even the shapes of these little tiny highlights, because that does matter. But don't overthink it. We're doing the best you can. Just go for close. Even in some of these darker areas, I still feel like I'm missing some depth here. And I'm kind of going in between those areas where I put the highlights. Just anywhere that I see there's some darker little crevices. Oh, I was looking for the white pencil and it was already in my hand. Imagine that. And sometimes up in this area, if you're looking at your reference photo, there are like some little hairline white marks where it looks like it's got these little sort of squiggly lines. I just noticed them. That's the fun part, is like sometimes you don't notice things until a lot further along. All right, there's some highlights down here. Move that out of the way. And there's some darker little bumps too. So just readjusting the values, looking at it to see what needs to be darkened. I'm just looking for shapes. I don't want a solid dark line, because that's what's going to make it look like a cartoon. Okay, let's see what else. I feel like there's a lot of really those little dark bumps that I'm kind of missing. So I'm just going to add just a few. So for the background, I'm thinking, so I get asked this a lot, what do you do with your backgrounds? You can draw them all in color pencil. I find that, especially larger pictures, that takes a lot of color pencil, and if you're only doing like a single color, that's kind of a waste, because it would take you so much color pencil to get a nice even application, plus blending it and re-going over it and blending it again. So I don't typically like to do my color pencils or use my color pencils for the background. I've tried several things. What I found has worked the most is watercolor and pan pastels. I like using watercolor the best because they will stay, they're flat, you know, they don't smudge like the pan pastels would, which are a dry medium, and they're kind of powdery like a pastel. So I have been using watercolor lately, but because I wanted to do this tutorial in color pencil, I still could do the watercolor, but I should have done that first before I did my drawing. And the reason I say that is because I like to outline my drawing with Frisket, liquid Frisket, which I've got a couple different brands that I've tried. This one is from Schmincke. This one's okay, but I actually prefer this one, which is Incredible White Mask Liquid Frisket. I put this in a little squeeze bottle with like a needle nose, like this, and I can squeeze this out and go along my outline very, very carefully and use very minimal amount of the liquid Frisket. And that, once that dries, that will keep the paint from bleeding into the area that you are going to be using the color pencil on. So you could do an underpainting with color pencil, Nothing wrong with that. Maybe I could try that one next time. But if you're just using it for the background, you don't want to get anything into the area where you're using color pencil. Now, the reason that I would do it first is because in the case that it does bleed, you can go over it with color pencil when it's dry. And then also because when you remove the Frisket, sometimes it will remove color with it because it's like a rubber cement. You know, when you peel it off, it kind of takes whatever it's sitting on with it a little. I found that the Schmincke one left a residue and the color pencil wouldn't color over that particular section. So when I used the other brand, the Incredible White, this one did not leave a residue, and it came up, it didn't remove much color because I tested it on the watercolor and the color pencil just to see what it would do, and it didn't really remove much at all. So I still want to be very cautious because I don't want a lot of it where I'm going to be coloring just in case. So, but I'll use that one. So now that I've already colored all of this, I don't want to put any liquid Frisket on top of my drawing. I could put it just on the outside, but then I wouldn't be able to finish it today. So I don't know. I could do that. But I'm trying to decide if I want to do the plate in color pencil and then just do the background in, you know, in either pan pastel or something. Here, I'll show you what those look like. So these are pan pastel. They come in sets like this where you can buy them individually. They're like little compressed pucks of pastel, and you put them on with like a little sponge, which these are super dirty. I don't know if you can see it. They're called Soft Tools, S-O-F-F-T or S-O-F-T-T, but they're very, very like spongy, like a makeup sponge. You could probably use a makeup sponge. It'd probably be a lot cheaper. But you literally just wipe the background on. It takes not a lot of time. Very, very easy. So I'm actually thinking, because I want to get this project done a little faster, just because I'm going to be going out of town and I won't be able to stream next week. I don't want to leave y'all hanging with like the last 30 minutes. I think I'll use the pan pastel to finish the outside. And you can actually use color pencil on the pastel as well. I've seen people do that. I haven't used them a whole lot. I've just used them for backgrounds. But they also still kind of, like once you put it on, it stays pretty well, but it's still very powdery. So like if you were to touch it, or if you take it to the framer and they touch it and, you know, then they touch something else, and it's kind of a mess. You could use a fixative, but when I tried to use a fixative with it, it left little speckles on my paper as well as the color pencil, so I didn't really care for the way it looked. And then it was still kind of powdery, like it wasn't a solid fix. So that's why I ended up switching to the watercolors, because I felt like that worked out a little better. So I'm just going around finding places that I need to just increase the contrast. I'm not really happy with whatever is going on up here. There's something that's bugging me. I think it's just the shape of the way I've drawn this highlight. I've got it a little too separated, where it's a little bit more like it's mostly white and there's less green texture, so I don't think I have enough of a lighter value. Like, it's still looking kind of like that rosette kind of shape. I think that's what's bugging me. Oop, that didn't belong there. Very easy to get a little happy with the white. And I'm going to go over some of these whiter areas here. Value's too strong for that particular section. All right, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to soften what I have. What did I do with my brushes? Let's see. Alrighty. So I've got my odorless mineral spirits is what I'm going to be using for my blending. And I'm going to use the large Taklon bristle brush. This one is a number 12 scrubber from Hobby Lobby. Doesn't need to be anything expensive. And I've got a towel. So I just dunked it and I'm just going to really kind of scrub that off. Also making sure it's clean. This had some blue on it from who knows what. I don't want any other color, but I do want it relatively damp. That should be enough. And I'm just gonna kind of pat this around just to kind of get things to blur. Still trying to get a lot of that greeniness to kind of go away, which I think I've got a pretty good coat on that part. All right, cleaning my brush off again, scrubbing it relatively dry. I did watch a really good movie today. One of my favorites. It's a classic. If you like old black and white movies, it's called The Philadelphia Story with Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart. It's a real funny one. I love those old classic movies. There's just something about them that are just, I don't know, they're more like intellectual, or like they're just more better. They're just more well done. I can't think of the words, but more creative, I guess, than a lot of the newer movies, where it actually feels like it's telling a good story. There's good dialogue. I don't think I've watched anything new recently that I've enjoyed over the last several years. I could probably think of maybe just a handful of movies that I could say I really loved over the last decade. Hollywood has just completely gone downhill. to go back in and do some more work in this section, which is okay. I'm getting rid of a lot of the graininess, but I'm blurring it a little too much. But that's okay. It's just going to add to the depth when I add more color to it. I'm just looking for areas where I see a lot of grain. I'm just kind of doing a light scrubbing. I'm gonna clean my brush out again. Do want to be careful in this area because I worked on this a lot and I like how it looks. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. I think in this section right here, I might need to add some more highlights, maybe even some more midtones and some dark areas as well. Okay, so we'll leave that alone to dry for a minute. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. Now let's look at this plate. So I chose some colors earlier that I thought would look the best for the plate. So what I'm going to do is I think I am going to combine the pan pastel and the color pencils. I'm going to do the little flecks of it is kind of like a gold, and then do the pan pastels over top. You'll still probably be able to see a lot of the flecks, but I'm going to kind of try and sandwich a little bit. Okay, add another, there it is. So these are all the Derwent drawing pencils. I'm going to start with Warm Earth. And I'm just randomly putting little shapes. Now, if I would have done this in watercolor or gouache, I could have actually used some metallic paints. That would have looked pretty cool. Now you want to alternate your sizes as well, because these are completely random. Some are big, some are small, some are faint, some are dark. And doing this white plate is going to be a little tricky too, because if you look at the top part, there is some bright white. Up here, there's some bright white on the reference photo, where that is where the whitest white is. The rest of the plate is actually probably like a step or two down from white, so more of a grayish. I'm going in with a sepia color just to kind of give some dimension to some of these dots. Nope, I don't want that one. You can put as many or as few as you like. What is going to be important is getting the values of the form of the plate, because these really aren't hard edges like I have them outlined to be. This is actually sort of like the slope in, and you need to do the shading as if it was more of a rolling object. Very soft transitions. Always keep your drawing covered so you don't get any oils from your hand on it. Sometimes I forget to do that, but it is important to do that. do like the look of this plate though, like in the reference photo, like I like the gold flecks. I've been thinking about, well, not thinking, but I need to replace our dish set. Blah, blah. We've had it since like we first got married, and it's just kind of this mix match of, you know, 2 plates from one set, 1 plate from an old set, and you know, like half of another. It's definitely a Frankenstein of kitchenware. And my taste in kitchenware has definitely changed since we first got married. So if you've been following along with me, I would love to see your progress. Feel free to either put it on Messenger and tag me in it, jhillfineart, or put it on Instagram and tag me. I don't have a hashtag for, well, I guess you could put hashtag jhillfineart or something like that. Or just message me. You can email it to me. I would love to see your progress. You can email me at jhillfineart.com or at gmail.com. Okay, now let's go ahead and apply the pan pastel. This is pretty filthy. I need to really clean it. I think you can actually wash these. You can see how dirty that is. Oh, it's awful. But I'm just going to wipe it off best I can. Usually that's pretty good and it doesn't come off. And I'm only going to use the gray tones. That's, well, all I have, really. I have the green and the blue, but we're not going to be using much of that. Okay, so I'm going to go with the light gray color, which is this one. And I'm going to start up here in the shadow. This does sort of make it very soft looking. Much like an airbrushed look almost. I'm going to get the white out as well because I can kind of mix the two. Like if I need a lighter gray color, like I do about right here, I can dip in each one. And you don't need hardly any pressure for this either. As soon as there isn't a lot of pastel going down, just add more to it. Don't keep rubbing because the texture of the paper is just going to rip this little foam pad apart. And just like that, it's so easy to adjust the values and just sort of mix it right on the paper too. So we have covered up a lot of that, a lot of the little specks. We can still see it though, but we may just need to sort of go back over it just a pinch. If you ever get a chance to try this medium out, it's pretty fun. Although they're a little expensive for my taste, so I don't have a lot of them. But sometimes you can find them on sale. They do not carry them at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You do have to special order them from like Jerry's Artorama or Blick Art Materials, fine art stores like that that carry a wider variety of art supplies or more unique art supplies. I'm going to use a little bit of a darker one and get right in here. Where's that shadow? Now you can work with this in layers too. I don't want too many layers because I don't want to lose all the little spots that I have. I'm going to turn my drawing just so I can get a better angle. Some people will actually use this medium as an underpainting for regular pastel drawings as well. If you check out, I think it's Jason Morgan Wildlife, he does a lot of pastel drawings and uses pan pastels for an underlayer. All right, put that back. I'm actually going to attempt to put a tiny little bit of blue just on the inside of the plate here because I can just see a little bit of color to that. Now I also see a little hint of green being reflected from that avocado. And I just happen to have this little bit of emerald green. Just a little bit, just enough to add some color. Now it looks like my camera may have froze or the feed froze. Not sure if you can still see it or not. All right, I'll close that back up for the moment. I don't know if it's frozen on y'all's end, but I've got a buffering wheel going on my end, so I don't know if it's still recording, even though I'm scared to refresh the page. we're gonna go back in here with just adding those little tiny spots again. All right, I'm gonna try and refresh this. If I have to start over again, I'll just end the stream and restart. Well, I think I'm still recording. So I'll just roll with it. But I'll just end soon because I'm not really sure what exactly it's doing. Sorry about that. I think our internet's kind of having a fit. But I'm just going to go through all these spots again. I'm going to leave parts of them as sort of out of focus where it's been sort of muddied or covered up, but I think that's going to give kind of a very neat look to it. Now I do want to be careful about not touching my hand to the areas that I have put that pan pastel. Because it's going to get on my hands and I don't want it to smudge and I don't want to put it in places where it doesn't belong. This is so bizarre. I don't know what is going on. Whale? Oh, there it goes. Well, that was strange. Sometimes the internet is just a funny thing. But we're back. I'm back anyway. And I'm going to continue on with embellishing my little flecks of gold in the plate. So with the pan pastel, you can color right on top with your color pencil. So I'm just trying to deepen this shadow a little bit more. Now I don't think you can put odorless mineral spirits on the pan pastel. I don't know if you've done that. Let me know how it turned out, because I'm not sure if you can. Honestly, I haven't really tried. but I also want to go around my edges and just really sharpen them up. That's the wrong color. But some of these little flecks of color have like, they almost kind of look like little cheetah spots or something. Like they have little, they're very grainy. My poor dog is outside of my room right now, and I can hear her pacing, because I know she wants to come in here. I don't know if you can hear her nails clicking across the hallway floor. I'd let her in, but she's so noisy. She's very needy. So I also got a little bit of the pastel on the avocado. You can actually take a gum eraser and just erase it off if you wanted to. It lifts off pretty well. Or you can just color right on top of it. That's fine too. Like right there, I got a pretty bad smudge. But I'm just going to go right on top of it with a color pencil, and that should fix it right up. And voila. Some of these little finishing touches, you know, if you go around with a really sharp pencil and just crisp up lines that are very sharp or really dark, that really helps kind of bring out your drawing. The sepia from Faber-Castell really is a nice dark color, but it's not flat looking like black is. I tend to use this a lot. It's a much more of a natural black. But these pencils are so good for doing detail like this, because you can just really go in there and crisp up your lines. But you do have to keep your pencil lead sharp. Alright, and we're just going to continue on. After a little side trip there, always rabbit trailing. And just make sure you're using a variety of colors. That'll give some more interest to whatever it is that you're coloring. And I can take my finger and kind of smudge a little bit just to kind of dull some of those back down. Or what I could do is just take a light gray or a white and just kind of smudge it. The white actually works pretty good. So I don't think we're actually going to finish this tonight. So I will have to just wait till I get back from vacation to finish up this project, but it's so close to being done. But at this point, I would be rushing it if I was going to call it done, and you don't want to rush good artwork. So that is one thing I do want to be good about, is don't rush good artwork. It does take time, but you can pretty much see most of it is completed. We just need to do a lot of fine tuning, but the fine tuning is an important part of your color pencil, especially when you get to the end, because you want to finish strong. You don't want to rush the details, and because it's going to look rushed. And fine tuning it by just taking a step back and just looking at it, you know, comparing where areas that need to be really darkened, need to be lightened, just going in one small section at a time to really hone in a lot of that detail. That is really crucial. Even though you've got all the layers and all the colors in the right spot, you just want to take your time at the very end to really look at what you've done and see what other improvements you can do. So even though we're at the end, just about, we're not going to cheapen this, and we are going to finish off strong, but it will have to wait until September. So let me go ahead and check my calendar, because I'm not entirely sure when I'll be streaming again. It definitely won't be next week. It'll have to be the week after. So probably the 5th of September is when I'll be able to get back to this. So what I'll do is, I don't even know if I'm going to get time to continue finishing the plate off camera. So I'll just continue with that if I get a chance. If not, we'll continue working on that the next episode. So anyways, keep working it on so nothing's changed. So feel free to work ahead, and I will catch up with you all on probably the 5th. I will post on my Facebook and my website and confirm that date, depending on when I get back in town. So without further ado, have a good night, and thanks for coloring along and hanging